know your shoelace is untied. All right. Who wants some?
Greetings, children of the screen. Your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again, and I am joined by
Taylor.
And welcome to Evil Dead October here on Channel Nerd Scum, where we are running through the entirety of the Evil Dead franchise, and today we are coming at you with The Medieval Dead.
It's called Army of Darkness.
I will never call it that. I will never call it that, except for when I have to call it that so people know what the fuck I'm talking about. Army of Darkness was originally released in 1992, rated R, running at 81 minutes. The film was directed by Sam Raimi, with a screenplay written by Sam Raimi and Ivan Raimi, with a cast that includes Bruce Campbell, M. Beth Davids, Marcus Gilbert, and Ian Abercrombie.
From Sam Raimi,
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
director of Darkman, comes Army of Darkness. They live.
That is right, guys. So once again, this week we are taking a look at The Medieval Dead. And as we've said in plenty of these videos before, I've lived with these movies for a long time, and they are among my favorites. However, Taylor has never seen any of these movies before. So Taylor, what did you think of The Medieval Dead?
Crazy cool.
Crazy and cool. Agreed. One of the things I love about the Evil Dead franchise is that every movie is a completely different movie. The tone is different, the style is different, the genre is even different to some degree. So in this movie, while there are monsters and all that kind of stuff, they kind of strip away any sense of horror that's there, except for maybe from one or two scenes, but even those scenes have enough goofy or fantastic or like ridiculous elements injected that they kind of lose the horror effect of it. Like, this movie is horror in the way that like a Spirit of Halloween store is horror. Like, it's just good fun, and that's awesome.
Boy!
For that arrogance, I shall see you dead.
Yeah. All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. See this? This is my boomstick. It's a 12-gauge double-barreled Remington, S-Mart's top of the line. You can find this in the sporting goods department. That's right, this sweet baby was made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Retails for about $109.95. It's got a walnut stock, cobalt blue steel, and a hair trigger. That's right, shop smart. Shop S-Mart. You got that?
So Taylor, what would you say is your favorite thing, or some of your favorite things out of this film?
Definitely the terrible continuity. Like, I should hate it, but I don't because it matches with the other movies.
Yeah, so its bad continuity is tonally in continuity for the franchise.
Yes.
Yes, that's very true. And, like, the last two were successful with all that stuff in it, so I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know? I mean, we're going to change literally everything else about the franchise except for our lead actor. But, you know, we'll keep the bad continuity because it's fun. Yeah, the movie does have awful continuity, but it is the kind of movie where even if there weren't two other movies that came with it that were just full of bad continuity, this is not the kind of movie where you're supposed to be paying attention to that kind of stuff. I mean, like, obviously it's going to stand out to you, but, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, this is just supposed to be a fun, dumb, like, it's a guy who time travels to some indiscriminate area in, like, Europe, somewhere around England area, you know, with some, like, Arthur who's not King Arthur, and then they fight, like, puppet skeletons for most of the movie. So, yeah, like, don't pull too many threads, because all the skeletons are held up by fucking threads, okay? But yeah, like, the bad continuity is very charming, and it is something that adds another level of fun to this movie. Yeah. So, as we established, almost everything in this movie is changed, and while we still have Bruce Campbell as Ash, our lead, following the tradition of Evil Dead, he's almost a completely different fucking character. No longer is his greatest enemy shelves, that's for sure, but he still has a problem with trees and branches. Pipes as well. These things are very much his enemies. But what I really appreciate in this movie is just this version of Ash, who is just pretty much tired of all this bullshit. And, like, you can make a leap that, like, yes, this could be the next progression of that character, but, like, whatever, it doesn't matter. In the context of this movie, even just with the little bit of backstory they give you in the beginning, like, he's just done with everybody's bullshit when this movie starts. And then throughout the course of the movie, we do see him continue to be selfish and continue to have all those traits of Ash, but we also kind of see the guy from the first movie, who was actually, like, a much more naive but caring character who really didn't want anything bad to happen to any of his friends, even to the point where, like, it takes him the entirety of the movie to get to the point of willingly chopping the dead people up. Like, up until then, like, Scotty has to do it and all that stuff. Like, he doesn't want anyone to get hurt. He wants everyone to be okay. And at the end of the day, in this movie, like, that characteristic, while it doesn't take over the rest of them, it definitely comes back to the forefront and makes Ash a slightly more well-rounded character and lays the groundwork for them being able to do things like Ash versus the Evil Dead later on. Because, yeah, the character he was in the second movie, I don't necessarily know you'd have that jumping off point where you could be like, oh, no, like, he is a more complex character who has multiple layers and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely appreciate that in this movie, that is in the movie, but it's also not like, they're not, like, hitting you in the head with a hammer about it. It's like, he's still a dickhead who's a coward and a braggart throughout the entire fucking movie. But when the chips are really down and, like, things are at their worst and, like, his side piece gets taken by the evil, then he's willing to stand up and fight the good fight with, like, the regular people of Arthur's kingdom or castle. They say things that implies it's a full, like, you know, city, but, like, it's just one castle. They're like, they've broken the first wall! There's only one wall, dude. We've seen this castle. There's only one wall. But yeah, so, like, I definitely appreciate that aspect of the character, and Bruce Campbell's performance of it is absolutely perfection. Most of my favorite things in this movie are just moments of Bruce Campbell doing things, like him being like, well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants. I got news for you, pal. You ain't leading to but two things, Jack and shit, and Jack left town. Like, it's just perfection. Or, of course, the one that has become the most iconic, which is Bruce Campbell standing in front of everyone with a shotgun in the air, going, "This is my boomstick!" And it's just great, because from the beginning of it with the, listen up, you primitive screwheads, to the end where he actually acts like he's doing a pitch on, like, the sales floor at S-Mart. Shop smart, shop S-Mart! You got that? Oh yeah, so shop S-Mart! They don't know what the fuck S-Mart is, they're never gonna know. He doesn't care. He's establishing dominance, and this character has had enough of this shit. So yeah, Bruce Campbell, both in his performance and his character development for Ash in this movie, are among my favorite things. Right on, so as I said, like, this movie for me, there's a lot of little things that I really love, but we tonight first watched it, like, we watched the director's cut. That's the version that we watched. However, I did show Taylor the theatrical cut ending, and we are going to talk about that at the end of the video. But I showed her the director's cut because it is my preferred ending to the film. The other one is fun and high-flying. Again, we'll get to that in a minute. But, like, the director's cut ending of Ash doing his Rip Van Winkle and waking up, like, 1,000 years too late, and it being, like, a post-apocalyptic world, is just such a... And then him, like, literally it cuts to black, and then he starts laughing insanely. And it's like, that is a perfect, horribly tragic ending for this character. You know, who, as I just said, has actually gone on a character arc through the 3 films, and now just all of a sudden it's like, I slept too long! And, like, I love that they've got, like, the Blade Runner building, so you actually see how far, like, oh crap, things got really advanced. And, like, honestly, that would be great as the end of the series, but it's also I honestly think that they probably would have got a 4th installment of the franchise if they had actually ended the movie with that. But the studio, and I believe test audiences, didn't like that it was a not happy ending, so they switched it up. But anyway, yeah, I love the director's cut ending. It's absolutely fantastic, and that is the ending that should be watched with every viewing of this movie. Even though it makes no sense now with Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Seems fairly obvious. Ooh, wait. The words. Right. Say the words. Klaatu. Barata. Necktie. Nectar. Nickel. Noodle. It's an N-word. It's definitely an N-word. Definitely an N-word.
Alright guys, so those are just a few of the things that we really enjoyed out of the movie. Obviously there are tons of great things, great little moments in this, but we gotta keep moving on. So now we're going to discuss a few of the things that did not work for us in this film, because as we've said, every movie has flaws, and some of these Evil Dead movies have a lot of fucking flaws. Whether that adds to the charm or not, they are still problems. We will be discussing them now. Leave your angry comments below. Taylor, what's something that you didn't care for or didn't work for you in the movie?
It's that one scene when he's in the windmill house and he sees his like reflection in the doorway and then he just runs into the mirror. Like, you had to stop and explain what that was.
I
felt like if you didn't explain it, it would have been like, what just happened?
And that is exactly why I did what I did.
Yeah.
Because, I've watched this movie with enough people for the first time that when we get to that scene, it's so jarring and abrupt and nonsensical in, like, a way that's not the right way the rest of the movie is nonsensical, that, like, I find that no one really can enjoy the next few comedic beats or the next sequence because they're still trying to figure out exactly how the fuck that happened. And when normally I would say, well, it's an Evil Dead movie, so don't worry about it, there's actually a really good reason for it in this case, and that's that they cut out a whole sequence of him, like, hearing something outside and then his horse running away and him going to find the horse, and then, like, when he's outside putting the horse, tying him up to a tree, that's whenever he turns around and sees himself standing in there, and then, like, the door closes and he runs, and then, so it makes at least some sense, but the only place you can see that, at least that I've ever seen, is on the TV cut of the film. However, before we did this video, I put the TV cut that comes with this Blu-ray set, in there, and was, like, trying to see it, and it's not on that stuff either, but it is included in some of the deleted scenes. So yeah, that whole segment is just cut out of the movie, and, like, you can definitely feel it. But at the same time, I get why they cut it. It's because, like, the way the movie is structured now, like, the fight at the end was supposed to be a lot bigger, so it was going to be a longer movie, but when you cut down everything else, it's like this part of the movie was taking way too long, but the stuff they cut out is vital to you understanding what's happening. So yeah, that fucking sucks. That is definitely an issue this movie has, for sure. As for me, here's the thing, this isn't even actually about the movie as it is. It is to some degree. So the effects in this movie are very cartoony. As we said, they're not really going for scary, they're going more for silly, and because of that, you're not really expecting realism for a lot of stuff. So it is kind of like a big cartoon, and that is fine. And in that respect, I'm happy with the majority of the effects in this movie. What I will say, however, though, is when you take those same effects and then transpose them onto a Blu-ray, they all look awful. Like, you can see the wires on every skeleton. When the car falls, you can clearly see, in the opening shots, when the car falls from the sky, you can clearly see the cables holding it up. Like, every wire for every skeleton in this movie shows up on the Blu-ray. And there's a lot of other things that look great in the Blu-ray version of this film, but it's like, man, that's stuff you can clean up. I've seen other movies do it. So if you're going to do the Blu-ray version, that should be part of the package. And it's like, there's actually a lot of things out there that have these very, like, inferior Blu-ray versions because the proper cleanup and color timing and things of that nature weren't really put into it. And while I love this movie, and for me, those are things that I've seen it so many times I can look past, it's not a big deal. I feel really bad for people who this is the first time they're seeing not Evil Dead, but the Medieval Dead. It's your first time seeing the Medieval Dead, and, like, it's like all of the seams are just out for anyone to see. It's like looking at a piece of clothes inside out. It's like it's still the thing, but you can see all, like, no, it's not right. It really hurts the tone and the fun of the movie because it is something that can pull you out of it really fast. So again, that's not even really a problem with this movie. I will say that in the movie itself, some of the effects are not to my liking. A lot of the practical stuff is really good, but a lot of the kind of green screen, or no, I'm sorry, blue screen stuff that they had at the time where it's multiple Ashes, and of course, like when it's Ash with the two heads and he's like going through the woods, both the stop motion and that extra head look really bad. Like they just look like it looks like a paper mache head they stuck to him. And especially in Blu-ray, you can see that the mouth movements on neither of the Ashes is synced up properly. So again, the Blu-ray takes something that was like not great, but it still was kind of charming in what it was, and makes it just look really, really awful. Like, if you were to watch some of these effects in this movie now on the Blu-ray version, you would think the people doing it don't know how to do effects. The truth is, they did know how to do effects, they just didn't have the budget to do all the effects they needed to do, so they did the best they could and took the tone of the movie as, like, a way to get out of having to do super realistic things. So anyway, yeah, the effects in the movie, you know, they're not as great as the previous two Evil Deads, but on Blu-ray they fucking suck. So yeah, that's a problem. It's a problem for me.
So, why doesn't he have to dismember them anymore?
Because the motherfucking medieval dead! Yeah, that's another thing that I have an issue with in this movie. The mythology as it is established is kind of thrown out the window. Now, there's a lot of expanding on that mythology, but, like, we see very few Deadites, as we've seen them previously in the franchise, in this movie, and the ones that we do are completely different. It was one of the few things that stayed relatively true in the first two movies of, like, how the Deadites would affect you in terms of change, like how you'd metamorphosize and all that stuff, and then how they behaved and how you got rid of them is by bodily dismemberment. But in this movie, not only do, he can just, kill them with his shotgun most of the time, but also there are other characters who get dismembered, like the evil Ash, who then, is nebulously brought back by the book when he takes the book, but, it's never really explained. Like, he's not one of the people in the graveyard, and it's not like every corpse all over the world arises, and he was definitely dismembered, so by all the rules that are established, he shouldn't be able to come back. Also, he then, force rape makes out with, Sheila, and turns her into, a Deadite who's not a Deadite, who, then whenever the Home Dude is defeated, she just becomes normal again, even though, there was no spell done to, nothing happened. So yeah, the rules of this movie are fucking out the window. They don't give a shit anymore. And, on one hand, that creates some very fun, interesting sequences in the movie. And I also know that another reason they did that is because the studio really wanted them to put as much space between the other Evil Dead movies and this movie as they could. That's why this movie's not called The fucking Medieval Dead, and it's called Army of Darkness. Not even the Army of the Dead, which is what it's referred to as in the movie. It's Army of Darkness, because they want it to have nothing to do with fucking Evil Dead. So, yeah, it's kind of... A lot of this movie's issues and problems that I have with it are a direct result of this movie being made with a studio, which had to be done because of the scale of the movie Sam wanted to make. So it's one of those things, it's well, I can have all those things that don't work for me in it, and have this movie that I have a lot of fun with, or I could not have the movie at all because it was the only way he could get it made. So, having said that, I guess I'm very happy to have Army of fucking Darkness. But I love the Medieval Dead.
That one.
Groovy.
Alright guys, so those are the things that we really, really enjoy and the things that really, really annoy us. Thankfully, there were no fucking shelves anywhere in this movie, anywhere near Ash. It was beautiful and brilliant. Although, he does work at S-Mart. I'm wrong. There are lots of fucking shelves in the movie. But that's not the point right now. The point is that we watched the movie, the director's cut, but I also showed Taylor the theatrical cut's ending. So Taylor, which ending do you personally prefer?
Definitely the director's cut, only because he has never had a happy ending in any of the movies, and I feel like it's a good like way to end the series.
Yes.
Because he doesn't get a happy ending. He's the
Right.
hero, but we need to see at least once in a movie that you don't always get a happy ending.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's like it also works as a end to the trilogy really nicely, because the movie has its roots in cosmic horror. And the whole idea of cosmic horror is that it's so big and uncomprehendable to humans that, like, you can't escape it. So it makes sense that Ash cannot escape this evil, and, like, no matter what he does, it just keeps fucking him over. So I really, really appreciate and prefer that ending as the trilogy. Now, what I will say is that I do like the theatrical cut ending. When I saw the movie first, that's the ending it had, and I accepted that without any, like, second thought, because it does actually feel more in tone with this movie. Like, while that other ending while it's my favorite ending, because I watched the movie in terms of the trilogy, like, for a studio putting this movie out, and for even Sam Raimi putting this movie out, knowing that a lot of people were going to go see this movie who maybe had never seen either of the other movies before, I can understand wanting to have something that feels more like an ending to this movie than to the trilogy. And this movie does feel like more of a kind of generic fantasy hero through time adventure story, so you need to have the big triumphant hero ending to it. So yeah, like, both of them have really good elements about them too. Obviously, in the, like, director's cut ending, like, it's thematically and character-wise much more satisfying, but in the, like, theatrical cut, like, you get an awesome action sequence. They're both really cool, but for me, and now that you've seen the trilogy, you can go in with, you know, the same point of view. For me, the director's cut ending really works better. But they're both a lot of fun.
Lady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
Who the hell are you?
Name's Ash. Housewares.
I'll swallow your soul!
Come get some.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Right on, guys. There you have it. Our thoughts on The Medieval Dead. Let us know down in the comments what you think about this film. Are we crazy? Are we not crazy? Also, it's fucking Evil Dead October, so make sure and check out our other Evil Dead content where we cover both of the previous movies, as well as Ash vs. Evil Dead, all 3 seasons. So once again, guys, thank you very much. Really hope you guys enjoyed this.
Bye!
Nerd Scum. Out. Medieval Dead! Medieval Dead! Medieval Dead! Fuck you, it's called The Medieval Dead.
Called Army of Darkness.
No, it's not. Don't look at that.